Well, one big question that comes up is when is the collapse actually going to happen with the U.S. government, the dollar, and all that type of stuff? Yeah, pretty much the obvious is in play. You know, it's deliberate, so there's going to be a world financial system, a world reserve currency. But like I stated before, I don't think the dollar is going to go to oblivion. I don't think that's the plan. And other commenters that say it is, I disagree with vehemently. I don't think that actually is the plan. I'm going to tell you one area actually where I picked up some things from like basically instinct, human nature, is I read about over 50 books on the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. And I read Edward Gibbon's 3-volume set, The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, 5 times. It has a lot in there about religious wars. Actually, a lot of the problem with the decline and fall of the Roman Empire was from intramural wars between Christians. No, it's the divinity. No, it's the Trinity, and they'll go kill each other. Being, I don't know, false Christians. That's really what they were doing, at those particular people. I'm going to point out something else here right from the get-go. A lot of people, and this is what I see the problem with the middle class. I know, like, I used to like Richard Nixon, actually. I think he was in bad. He used to talk about the great silent majority. He was an elite guy that was actually on the side of the middle class, for real. He was more of a moral president than any of them, really. And I think he was set up. How's that for an unpopular opinion? And I used to think that back in the early 70s when all the Watergate was going on. I wasn't one of the plebes that was out there saying, oh. I knew it was a bunch of bullshit. I mean, compared to like all the stuff the other people do, it was nothing. It was nothing. So, I don't know. I'll stick in with opinions that are very unpopular. But I'll tell you this. A lot of the problem, he calls them this great silent majority. I call them the great pile of amoebas. Really. You know, when I look at something like an apparition like Hillary Clinton, somebody I can't stand, I realize, you know, it's not just her. It's all her supporters. And it's not just politics. She's an evil lady. She's evil as all hell. She's rotten. She's evil right to the core. So guess what supports her? Evil women, right? Maybe that's what's the problem, too. Maybe that's the problem, because I'll call it out as it is. You know, that's the problem right there. But during the time of Rome, when Rome fell, even after it fell and it was clear the empire had fallen, when historians went back to look for specific events or specific dates when it actually fell, it was a rough task. It wasn't like something clear-cut. So this is my point. You're not going to actually know when it's going to happen for sure. You'll never know it. You think that's a bad answer, but I'm giving you a real answer. That is a real answer, and that's why. Because even when Rome fell, the historians couldn't pinpoint a good date as to when it actually fell. A lot of them use 460 A.D. They'll use that. You know, when the last Roman emperor was still, you know, alive, and he basically had both names of Augustus and Ramus, you know, the founders of Rome, the first emperor and the first one to found Rome. He basically had both those names incorporated in his names. And so he used that 460 A.D. But, you know, it's like when it was going on, nobody really knew that Rome was really falling. It would seem like it was, then it wasn't. And that's exactly what you're going to see what's going on with the dollar. As a matter of fact, when these shills, and I'll call them this because these silver bloggers, and some of them, I'm not going to knock all of them, because there's people out there sincere. I think highly of Endless Mountain. I think he's sincere all the way. He's not one of those profit-motivated type people all the way. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with being profit-motivated, but not at the expense of the middle class. You know, none of that. But it's like you got a number of people out there that will, when things are falling with the dollar, they are going to be screaming to the high hills that everything's falling apart, and you're probably going to see a regrouping of the U.S. dollar, and it's going to come back strong. It's going to go in waves. And, you know, their predictions have been horrible. Totally horrible. All of them. Most of the time. They've been totally horrible. And, you know, I don't know why people are listening to that bullshit, because it's not helping them. They think they're getting information. But, you know, I'm going to point out something else. These guys, like when you're talking like finance and stuff, it's almost like the Pharisees of old. The Pharisees, you know, the one Jesus criticized, finance, accounting, um, you know, organized medicine with pharmaceuticals. They're the Pharisees. The middle class supports the Pharisees all the way, all the way. So whose fault is that? It's their own fault. That's what I say. Now, as far as what Jesus was, you know, I know he says he's the Son of God, but, you know, I'm going to look at it from a very common sense standpoint. He was a blue-collar worker. He was a carpenter. He made stuff. And, you know, getting right back to real, even when Rome fell, you know, the people that were worth stuff, worth money to the barbarians, the ones that took over, were the people that were like carpenters, masons, people that made things out of stone. People are blacksmiths and know how to make tools and weapons. People are like the leather people and know how to make leather from skins and hides, you know. People are architects maybe in that area that understood the stresses of bridges and archways and construct things. Those type of people were worth the money. The people that were educated in the professional fields, they were worth nothing, period. They're like, go grab a freaking shovel. That's what they were about. Now, consider I'm mainly from the professional field. I have quite a bit of education. I took like other things for the hell of it that I never got involved in, like real estate courses, insurance courses, finance courses, and this kind of garbage. But I've always kept one foot, and I'll call it this, the redneck area. The redneck area, because I got respect for that. And actually, if you look around, even in the northeast city areas, a lot of the Italians are like that. A lot of the Italians are like that. They stay right down to earth. Even when they're in, you know, the professional fields, they'll do stuff. They'll do stuff. They're halfway rednecks. The country bumpkins. Because that's really like a lot of what Italy is in a lot of ways. It's not city. A lot of it's country. I want to point out something else, too, about when Rome fell. You know, it definitely did not have to fall. What really happened is, like, simplicity is the character of the middle class totally changed. You know, in the early Rome, when Rome was being attacked by Hannibal, right? Hannibal was attacking Rome. He was doing that for a couple decades, and when Rome put together the largest army they ever did up until that point in time, Hannibal destroyed it in one single afternoon by using double envelopment maneuvers, which something they never came across with a smaller army. He destroyed them. He killed them like it was a nuclear bomb. Bodies like 4 feet high in the field of Canaan. So, did Rome give up? No, they didn't. They just employed, you know, a Fabian-type strategy after the General Fabian. Slow, deprived Hannibal of, you know, any method that he can win, you know, use the land, use any resources. Total different character of Romans that existed then that existed at the end. So really the problem lies, and I say this 110%, with the middle class itself. The middle class can stop anything. But I realize when you're getting behind garbage like Russia Today and, you know, seeing them as alternative media and they're like getting after the voice of the West, there's a game going on. And I can elaborate more on that, but a lot of the alternative media, Alex Jones and all this, and the guy that says there's lizard people running the world, they are garbage. They are big bucks garbage. And the only way to actually fly ahead is through the middle class itself. So what's the problem? It's them. It's the middle class. It's the middle class. Now, I want to actually say for survivability, if, you know, silver goes up to these $400 an ounce, let's say, you know, it goes up 12 times or something like that, you know. Well, let's say gasoline goes up 5 times. It's $20 a gallon. You're still way ahead, aren't you? You're still way ahead. So the way I look at it, silver is going to be the investment that's going to help you out, but it's not going to really come into play until we get involved in a war in the Middle East with Iran. That is actually what's going to drive the metal up. Right now, see, in a non-wartime situation, the commodities and it looks like all the industrial output of the nations is looking piss poor. So it's not going to climb that high. I expect it probably up to $75 an ounce silver by the end of this year, earlier in this year, because I expect it late spring for there to be an attack on Iran. Now, considering Obama was in office, I think that has a lot to do with it. And Brzezinski, they stopped it. If Cheney was in office in 2008, we would have attacked Iran as soon as he was inaugurated in 2009. It depends on who we have as president. Now, when Romney gets in, it's almost a given. It's going to happen. I know it. There's no doubt about it. But that's going to be very bullish for your silver. No doubt about that. But you're going to see a hell of a lot of other commodities go up. But are these people in the silver blogging community, are they really helping you? No. They're like the Pharisees. They're like the people in Rome that were reciting the Greek prose, and they understood all the intricacies of legalities of this and that, and they can memorize all these different lines. Didn't help. What really worked for the Rome after it fell was the blue-collar worker, the guy that knew how to make stuff. And that's the way it works. It's going to work in the United States, too. I want people to remember that because, I don't know, I think you're just getting led off a cliff with these clowns out here with their, a lot of stuff they're presenting on, their financial hours and stuff. They're just out to make fiat bucks. But I just want to give a couple factoids in this thing because it's really, why did the markets go down today? Look like before the Spain had, the other day, it looked like everything went up a lot with Spain because they had access to easy credit. The government had access to easy credit. So guess what happened? It rose. The markets in Spain rose a lot, which pulled up the Dow. And now we got some different news out here. The bad loans in the Spanish banking system rose to a record high in August 2012. So it's pulling down the Spanish markets. Also, more news about China. GDP growth slowed to 7.4%. Now, I think this Chinese growth is actually going to change for the fourth quarter of 2012. That's another reason I think you're going to see silver end up doing a lot stronger for the end of the year. You're going to see some numbers out there, and this is just typical. Well, I mean, usually what happens at the end of every year is you'll see the commodities go up. It's pretty typical. It's not an unreasonable bet. And when Romney gets in office, I say he's the boy for the Wall Street crowd. You're going to see the markets take off a little bit, and you're going to see like more good news and more things being pushed up. So that's why I think silver's actually going to have a strong finish this year. But when the fiscal cliff hits, I don't know about what's going to happen then. I think the only thing that's going to be bullish for is gold. I'm not sure about silver when the fiscal cliff hits. The other thing that happened today, Spanish government bond yields fell. They weren't selling any bonds. So, the other day they were talking they had some new easy credit, access to some new easy credit. Now they're trying to sell bonds. So that's going to pull down their markets. And a lot of times when their markets pull down, it pulls down, the U.S. markets too. Now today they're expecting the initial on the U.S. side, the U.S. initial jobless claims are expected to rise today. So, last time this report came out, it looked like they dropped a lot. A lot of people were saying it was a bunch of phony garbage. Probably was. And, I guess they can only manipulate the data so long. That's what it goes on with that. So, so you're going to see some pullbacks a little bit here for the short term. But I don't think silver's going down even. It's not going to go down that much. I mean, you're looking at, it's 32.84 sitting right now. It's not going to go down that much. We're not going to hit those kind of crazy points that we're hitting before in the 20s. It's not going to do that. And where I see the turnaround is going to come around is probably in November, just in a few weeks. Like today is Thursday, October 18th. When this election occurs, I think it's going to be very bullish for the commodities and the Dow all together. I think you're going to see things moving up, because the policy of quantitative easing is still in place. There's no doubt about that. So it's a no-brainer. So, but I want people to realize the number one hardcore things. Actually, even what I'm putting out here on silver, really, you just need to know is buy the crap, save it. That's it. What you really need to concentrate on more is how to do things on your own. Anything. Be as independent as possible. So, ergo, I put out some videos on anything I'll be doing, and if I have any kind of tips on anything, because I'm halfway a mechanic on a lot of things, and I realize a lot of those skills are very important. If we become like Rome, and Rome crashes, I don't think we are, to tell you the truth, but say we do, that's like the big worry. If people have the skills to do things on their own, there ain't going to be a problem. It's the professional snake oil scam artists that are the problem. And it seems like the middle class is their biggest supporters. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's just like, I can never figure how, looking back through all the years, how medical has progressed, why the middle class still supports the average conventional doctor. Why? I don't know. They must be crazy or suicidal or something. I have no idea. Because they're not giving them accurate information. They're not out for their side. They're only out for their own fiat money. And that's pretty much how I see a lot of things going on with these alternative media people talking about the decline, the fall of this. I'm going to tell you, if you want to actually look at what happens in the decline of something, go read about the decline and fall of the Roman Empire in more detail. Not the Hollywood version, in more detail. That will give you a hell of a lot of wisdom as to what's going on today. People have not changed at all. Not one bit. And it's like that empire pretty much been through the whole damn thing. So if you want to know what's going to happen, that'll tell you. That'll tell you. But getting right back to basics, what always survived was, the blue-collar worker. I know they talk about the country boy survived. They got that song out there, but it really is kind of true. I mean, but you got to actually have some reality to it. It's a hell of a lot of work. The blue-collar worker is actually what built this whole nation. All the way. All the way. And these silver snake oil bloggers, they're not building shit. I'll tell you that right now. Right now I'm being one. That's why I don't like doing this sometimes. I only do this silver stuff because I get mad at those other people. I mean, that's really what it is, because a lot of them I don't like. I mean, I'll say, yeah, Endless Mountain, I think he gives a very good... He's not... you could tell that guy is not like one of those other ones. A lot of those other ones are, you know what they're about. They're an Alex Jones. They're garbage. They're garbage. They're out for money all the way. They're out playing your fears. That's all they're doing. That's why, but what I told you today, even those simple facts, that's why the markets went down. But I'm going to tell you, again, if you want a prediction, I'm not going to bet leverage myself, but I put more money into silver, is that the markets are going to be up on silver and gold and everything else by the end of the year. It's probably going to have a pretty strong finish. You're going to be surprised.